Good to be here this morning. And I want to share that I didn't run into homophobia until I was 18 years old. Now, I knew it was this awful prejudice that kind of skulked around, really destroying people's lives and being quite nasty, but I never connected with it personally because I grew up from the age of 8 in Paris. And France is a very sex-positive, body-positive culture. So I grew up seeing women holding hands with women and men with their arms around each other. And boy, I tell you, as a teenager, some of those movies I got to watch with women making love to women, that was great. But then I came back to the US and went to an alternative college in Sarasota, Florida. Right in 1977, when Anita Bryant was leading her brigade to pass a law, yeah, you can boo out to her, that would make it illegal for any homosexual to have any job that had any contact with any child, which is a crazy law. So being raised UU, of course, I got together with the local congregation and we went out and protested, and guess what? Within a few weeks, I met the Ku Klux Klan. So, growing up in Europe, I took U.S. history in high school, and I read the books, quite interested in learning about my country of origin. But I found those history books lied. It's kind of like what Kate referred to. It made this nice thing of like, oh, in the 60s, yeah, civil rights was taken care of, and all. And I got there in Florida, and I'm like, oh, the racism and homophobia was as thick and oppressive as the humidity. And just as invisible, too. Because I'd ask people about it, and they said, well, that's just the way it is. And I'm like, no, it's not. It's not the way I grew up. And so I found that when people can't see prejudice, it's hard to deal with it, and that's how privilege gets continued on and on. So I kind of had enough of Florida, and I'd heard about this place called California. Supposed to be real liberal, but again, people didn't explain culture that well. So they didn't explain the difference between South and North California. So I headed to Redlands, which is very conservative and just as racist and homophobic. But in 1984, I finally made it to Sonoma County. And in 87, yes, I joined the Unitarian Universalist Fellowship of Sonoma County, which was actually in the county then. And the Unitarian Universalist Association had just come out with a new program for congregations called Welcoming Congregations, so that all the congregations could then be more of a safe home for queer folk like me. So, of course, we did what every good UU congregation did when they would start something, is we formed a committee. And then we had workshops, and we did Sunday services, and in the early 1990s, this congregation officially became a welcoming congregation. And we are now in the process of renewing that, because given everything happening in the world, it's important to keep that in a forefront. So we're in the process of renewing our welcoming congregation status. And I really appreciate this congregation because it has been a home for me, and it also was a place that I could explore because about 8 to 10 years ago, we hosted the transgender conference here in this building, and I was helping with it. And there were these affinity groups, and one of them was non-binary, genderqueer. And I thought, that's interesting, because I never really related to this word woman. It just didn't really fit with me. But I thought that was just because, I was queer and I didn't fit the stereotype. But it was more than that. When I was sitting in this room with 20 other people talking about their view of gender, I realized, gender is this thing that kind of floats out there, and it's, supposed to be so vitally important that it's the first question that's asked of a little baby, is it a boy or a girl? But it just never fit for me until I was in that group and I realized, yeah, actually I'm non-binary. And if you want to make me smile, you can use the pronouns te and tem, which is like they and them, but it's non-binary singular. Because as an author, I don't like saying they is. So it would be te is, and Jan is, te is, or, give it to Jan or give it to Tim. And someday, I hope, as we keep progressing, that us non-binary folk will actually have our own pronouns that are well used, just like how Ms., is, no longer people say Mrs. and Miss so much, it's Ms., so someday there'll be a pronoun for me. But I have so appreciated this congregation and our long journey, and it's wonderful to be here again, renewing our welcoming congregation status.